Okay, Miss Brittany, we have done your observation today, and we're gonna go over what we talked about.
Yes.
Okay, so you gave me your scores, and I'm so excited for you because I know I figured this one, but what I didn't know was your third party score and where you were. So you have all your highest is positive, calm, and productivity. I noticed one of your lowest scores was concept development. So and quality of feedback. So when I was observing, and observing what you were doing, that's what I was looking at. We're gonna take at each of our coaching sessions.
Okay.
Or we'll zone in into one, right? So the one we zoned in on today, or I was looking for today, was concept of development.
Okay.
So, when you were doing your morning circle and reading the story, I noticed some great things. You asked them, do you remember what we talked about yesterday? Do you remember the story? And they did that. They knew. Then you started talking about what lizards were, were they reptiles, and asking them questions about that. And I think you're doing some of concept development, and you don't realize that you're doing it.
Okay.
So you don't do it consistently because you don't realize, oh, that's what that is. For example, part of concept development is comparison and contrast, right?
Okay.
So,
I need to get practice now.
oh, look. Go ahead, and we're gonna, we'll go through it. I'll have it written down, and I'll give you
Okay.
some of. I'll definitely share my notes with you that I've written down during your observation. You good? Oh, and see, look. For example, you see this that you have. Okay, you have your magnetic board. Once you finish that story, or this one, other than the book, right? This story is a better one to tell your reptile story in morning circle time.
Okay.
It's shorter, so you keep their attention, right? You can go over it beforehand and talk about it. They still can do how I stopped you during book time and talk to you about doing a book walk with them and letting them see the cover of the book, letting them feel the cover, tell them that the book walk time, this is quiet time. They need to know that book walk time is, we can't say a word. Just walk around with the book or hand the book not hand it to them, but you show them the book to each one of the children. So it's quiet time. So right there, you're settling them down
Okay.
to hear the story because they realize that, okay, now is the time for me to use my mind. So I have to be quiet so I can think about it. And that's the kind of thing you tell them. You have to be real, real quiet and real, real still when I show you this cover so you can get all the thoughts. And this is the time we keep all the thoughts in our mind until Miss Brittany asks you what your thoughts are.
Okay.
So then you take that time and go one by one and make sure each one of the children see the cover of the book, giving them thinking time, right? So you're giving them thinking time. So everybody individually can think, but strategically, what you're doing is calming them down now because now I'm waiting for my turn.
Okay.
Now I'm waiting for my turn. Now I'm waiting for, so you're getting them settled down. Once that happens, okay, everybody's seen the book. So I'm gonna call on 2 people today. To tell me what their thoughts are, because I noticed, everybody, and then that's the problem. You say you have everybody want to talk at one time. So you let them know you're going to call on 2 people today.
Okay.
And let's see, you can be strategic on how you do that. What's our color of the day? What's our color of the week? What's our letter of today? Whose name starts with this letter, or our letter of the week? However you want to do it, but choose 2 to 3 people to tell you what they think. Okay, and you did yours yesterday. You remember you had on red yesterday, and our color was red. So today I'm going to call on Corbin because Corbin has a letter C in his name. His name begins with C. See, you're still doing teaching opportunities, but now we're knowing how to take turns and using it. Not only that, that's a mini transition.
Okay.
Right? So you're also working with transitions doing that. So, but then you tell them, you're getting them thinking, you're getting them predicting, right?
Okay.
So prediction is a part of concept development. you're getting them to predict. That's a part of analysis and reasoning, right?
Okay.
So by having them, and I'm gonna make sure I get you a copy of this. You'll definitely, okay? So, and I'm gonna leave you some resources that help you out with questioning on analysis and reasoning. So
Okay.
analysis and reasoning examples of how to question, right? So you're having them predict. All in this story time, right? You had them predict. You had them compare because you told them, hold your hand up and your arm. Now let's wrap your hand around your arm. That's how the lizard or chameleon holds on to a branch by using their feet, and their feet are like, you see what I'm saying? So they can literally see what's going on with they can compare it. They have something in their hand, literally, in their hand that they can compare it to, right?
Okay.
So that was a part of compare, and look at that. You're hitting all these areas in that, but the thing is to be comfortable enough to not just do it one time, but to be cognizant of doing it in every area, doing it with all that you're doing in every teaching opportunity.
Okay.
Having a way to put this in, finding a way to put it in, how I can get them thinking, how can I get them analyzing, how can I get them predicting what's about to happen, how can I get them comparing or classifying. You did classification with the bird. Yes, you see what I'm saying? You did today. You had them talk about what has fur and skin, what has feathers, you have all these animals. Let's see if we can put them in these areas. Let's classify them.
And I guess I get in my head so much so I'm like, are you doing it? Are you doing it right?
Yes.
Okay.
You
Just
can't.
need to relax.
Yes, you need to relax. Do not stress yourself out at all over it because you're doing it. It's just now you have to work on being consistent with it and intentional in your teaching. See, that's where intentionality comes in, where you're thinking about this ahead of time. You're looking at this ahead of time. So how am I going to get them to participate? How do I want to use these little magnets? And before the story even starts, look, you have, even though you have a large class, but pass the magnets out to each one. I need some people to help me tell this story, right?
Okay.
And every time when you get to this part of the story, then have that child come up and place it on the magnet, or see who's next. What's next in this story? After you've read this 2 days, they ought to be able to, they ought to be able to kind of predict what's coming next. So the person who's holding what's coming next may be ready at that time to come on and go up. But see, and that's your way of letting them, of you knowing that they're understanding what you're doing, that they're grasping the concept of what's the story about, that they're grasping the concept of what you're trying to teach them, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, see, all this time you did it. Let's see what comments that they had with that. The educators sometimes provided and facilitated activities that encourage analysis and reason. See, we're gonna take that sometimes away and we're gonna move it over here up to where it's always, right? Right. We want to work really, really hard together and set some goals to where you can see where not get in your head and realize how can I do this consistently, okay? And they asked them some how and why questions as they talked about bridges and transportation, but mostly they just had students tell her about their centers. They asked, how did you build a bridge? The educators consistently provided opportunities for children to be creative and or generate their ideas. See, you consistently did that. During small group, half of the students were able to draw a picture of transportation. During centers, they had open-ended play with dolls, kitchen, and water animal play in blocks. They also had access to markers to draw. In the centers, they had draw as well. The educators sometimes look like I'm having a harder time reading this than they had writing it, looks like. The educators sometimes attempted to link concepts from one activity to the next or to previous learning. There were some activities in the centers that were linked to transportation, such as bridge building. They also discussed a passport in the center as well. That seems so positive to me. Seems very positive to me. Okay, the educators sometimes attempted to make learning meaningful by relating new concepts to children's everyday lives. They talked about their bikes, training wheels, and discussed You sound like you did a whole lot of talk on transportation. They also discussed if they had seen a tall building while they built the blocks. As one student swept on the floor, the assistant talked with them about sweeping their own house. Okay, so they listed some examples of you doing it sometimes. So the thing is consistency.
Mhm.
So that's what we'll work on together, consistency, right? So we're not gonna jump from one thing to the next. We're gonna stick to one thing,
Okay.
get it nailed down. So we're going to set some goals.
Yeah.
What would be, if you needed to set a goal dealing with concept development, what would that goal be?
I really, like I said, I need to get out of my head and just do it fluently, like without even thinking about it. You know what I'm saying? Because that would be my biggest thing is that I'm an overachiever and I overthink to where sometimes I'm not as consistent as I would like to be, and it doesn't flow cohesively. You get what I'm saying? So I'm gonna study this. And all the resources that you give me, I'm going to, like you said, I'm not going to overload myself.
Yeah.
Since I know that was like one of my lowest scores, that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on that and kind of like I said, get it down pat to where I'm doing it fluently all the time.
Okay.
So that will be the step that I want to take to get better about it.
But know that your scores
Mm-hmm.
do not dictate everything. This is just
Yeah.
we get observed just to give us a base of where we
Mhm.
need to go, what we need to work on, right? So it's not an end all be all of everything,
Yeah.
right? But it does give you something to aim for, something to shoot for. So I hear what you're saying about wanting to be consistent in it.
Mhm.
So let's just take one thing at a time.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's work on resource and let's work on concept development, one thing at a time. You, with analysis and reasoning, whenever I saw what they said and I saw what I saw today, with analysis and reasoning, you're hitting these areas and you don't even realize you're doing it.
Mhm.
So I say just be more in tune or more intentional about what you're doing
Okay.
in the different areas, right? When you moved from one, I can see the concept flowing from one area to another. And even in the transportation, when you had your observation, you can tell that you had you had that same concept flowing through all your areas, through morning time, through your centers. You can tell that you had that concept flowing from area to area. But now we need to see how they even said that they saw creativity in how they built the bridges and how the children built bridges and did what they had to do on their own. They were doing it, right? So, and even sometimes you integrate, it's just so interesting to me how they even said that sometimes you even integrated the children's lives in there.
Mm-hmm.
So what we'll do next is I'm going to show you a video on how a person does this in a consistent manner, right?
Okay.
We'll look at together, you and I'll look at a couple of videos, and then I'm going to leave you some resources. And the next time I come, we're going to practice some of what you saw,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Okay. So let's see what we can find.